I was only 4 when I realized some monsters drive trucks. Back then, I lived in a tiny house tucked into a rough neighborhood. Of course, I didn't know how dangerous it was at the time. I was just a kid. My parents, especially my mom, worked hard to make life feel safe for me and my older brother. My dad worked nights, gone from 4 p.m. until around 2 a.m., so it was mostly Mom who watched over us. It was one of those bright, warm spring days when my mom finally put training wheels on my new bike. I remember being so excited to ride alongside my big brother, feeling like I could finally keep up. We were out on the sidewalk, laughing and racing each other under the sun, completely carefree. But then I saw it. A red truck. It was sitting still on a shady street corner, its nose pointed straight at us. I didn't think much of it at first, just a big old truck with dark, unreadable windows and dull, scratched-up paint. But it didn't move. Not at first. My brother and I sped ahead a bit, getting farther from our mom. That's when I noticed it again, closer this time. The truck had moved. We kept biking, trying to enjoy ourselves, but that truck, it never stayed far behind. It would creep along the road, either behind us or right next to us. Silent. Watching. Then Mom saw it. She shouted for us to come back, and her voice cut through the warm air like a blade. She ran toward us with fire in her eyes and that terrifying, "Don't mess with me" look she could turn on in a second. The moment she pulled us close, the truck peeled away. Fast. Like it knew she wasn't someone to mess with. But she didn't let it go. She whipped out her phone and snapped a picture of the license plate. "That wasn't someone who was lost," she said, more to herself than us. Her voice was low, tight with suspicion. "That was someone looking for something." 2 weeks passed. We were in the living room, the 3 of us curled up on the couch watching a movie. It was late, and I remember the sound of sirens screaming in the distance for what felt like forever. Then, something else. A noise at the back door. Mom stood up fast, her instincts kicking in like lightning. She grabbed the handle and yanked the door shut, holding it tight. The lock on that door had been acting up, and she knew it. She braced her body against it, her face fierce. The person didn't stop. They moved to the kitchen window, rattling it, pounding, even trying to smash it with a rock from our garden. I don't know why it didn't break. Maybe it was a small rock, or maybe we were just lucky. My brother and I ran and hid under the bed in our parents' room. It was the only door with a working lock. We huddled there, silent, terrified, as the chaos unfolded just feet away. Minutes later, flashing lights filled the street. Voices shouted in our backyard. And just as quickly as it had started, it was over. The police caught him. Turns out, the guy had been running from them all night, and he chose our house to try and hide. It was him. The man from the red truck. A pedophile. A trafficker. And he had been scouting us. I still wonder if it was random, or if he'd been watching our house for weeks, maybe thinking Mom was a single mother since Dad was always gone at night. Maybe he thought our house would be easy. But he was wrong. Because my mom? She's a force of nature. And I'm convinced that if she hadn't been exactly who she is, I wouldn't be here to tell this story. It was one of those perfect spring nights, until I saw the family standing in the road. The air was warm, my windows were down, and I had music blaring as I cruised home around 10 p.m. That stretch of road was familiar, long, winding, flanked by heavy trees, and dead quiet at night. Only a few streetlights dotted the path, just enough to keep you from feeling completely swallowed by the dark. As I came around one of the sharper curves, I had to slam on my brakes so hard I nearly skidded. About 50 yards ahead, right in the center of the road, stood what looked like a family. And when I say the road was pitch black, I mean pitch black. The only thing illuminating them was my headlights. There were 3, maybe 4 of them. A tall, thin woman, a man of average build, a child with short hair, and the woman was pushing a stroller. Their clothes weren't torn or ragged, but they weren't fancy either. Just normal. And yet, everything about the scene was off. None of them had flashlights. No phones. No reflective gear. Nothing. They had been walking down that road in total darkness, deep in the forest, without a single light source. And what really got me? They were completely silent. No talking. No footsteps. No sounds at all. I turned the music down, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. But no, still nothing. They didn't even seem to notice me. I sat there in the car, just watching, waiting for them to acknowledge that I was there. But they didn't. They didn't look back. Didn't step aside. Just kept walking, slowly, eerily, in the same direction I was headed. It was like I wasn't even real to them. I remember blinking, thinking maybe I was dreaming. The whole thing felt like something out of a nightmare, so strange, so unreal. Then, without warning, they all stopped. And turned. At the exact same time. That broke me. I didn't even wait to see their faces. I couldn't. My gut screamed run. I threw my car in reverse and floored it for at least 20 seconds before whipping into a U-turn and speeding back the way I came. The only detail that stuck in my mind, burned into it, really, was the stroller. It was empty. And for some reason, that terrified me the most. I didn't go home that night. I went straight back to my friend's place and crashed there. Every few seconds of that drive, I checked my mirrors, expecting to see them again. But they were gone. I've driven that same stretch of road dozens of times since. Day and night. They were never there again. I asked around, my friend, her family, but the looks I got made me stop talking about it. So yeah, maybe it was a bizarre prank. Maybe it was a setup. Or maybe I saw something I wasn't supposed to. And if I had waited even one more second to drive away, maybe you wouldn't be hearing this from me. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid, until the SUV tried to take me. Back when I was 15, running was my escape. I'd throw on some music, lace up my shoes, and hit the pavement. It helped me clear my head, especially with everything going on at home. My parents were going through a rough divorce, and with 3 brothers close to my age, my mom had her hands full. She did everything she could to keep us safe, but we were left home alone a lot. It wasn't a big deal, we looked out for each other. That's just how we grew up. It was during one of my usual springtime runs that I first noticed the black SUV. It was a big, shiny Suburban, and it rolled up beside me just as I started my final sprint, something I always did at the end of my runs, like racing myself to a finish line only I could see. The SUV didn't just pass by. It paced me. Accelerated like it was trying to beat me. My heart jumped. That last leg of my run was usually on an empty street, the kind where streetlights flicker and nobody's around. I tried to shake it off, maybe just a bored teen messing around. But still, it felt wrong. I stopped, bent over to catch my breath, and watched. The SUV was maybe 30 yards ahead. It slammed on its brakes and just sat there. No movement. No engine roar. No door opening. Just still. I didn't move either. Something deep in my gut said, don't. Eventually it drove off. I went home and didn't say a word to my brothers. But it didn't end there. The second and third times it showed up, it crept up behind me and lingered. Always just far enough back that I couldn't make out the plates, but close enough to feel it. The windows were so heavily tinted that I couldn't even see the driver. No shape. No silhouette. Just darkness behind glass. Each time, I'd pick up speed, and so would the SUV. By the end, I was sprinting for my life, lungs burning, legs shaking. One time, I even vaulted over a fence into someone's yard, praying I wouldn't run into a dog or an angry homeowner. After that, I finally told my oldest brother what was happening. I kept it vague, just that I thought someone was following me. He didn't say much. Just nodded and told me to be careful. Then came the 4th time. It started like any other run. Music blasting in my ears. Steady pace. Zoned out. I didn't hear the SUV pull up behind me. I only noticed it when it honked, loud and sudden. I turned just enough to see the driver's side door swing open. That's when instinct took over. I ran. Behind me, I heard a man shout. "Hey!" Twice. Then the doors slammed shut and the engine roared. He was coming after me. I didn't look back. I just focused on the narrow path ahead, one I knew the SUV wouldn't be able to follow. I had maybe 50 yards to reach it. The Suburban kept surging forward, getting close enough to make my skin crawl, then backing off again, like it was playing with me. Then I saw someone up ahead, walking toward me. It was my brother. He must have seen my face, panicked, wild, and the SUV behind me. Without hesitation, he bent down, grabbed a heavy rock, and charged. He didn't scream in fear. He screamed in rage. Cold, focused, calculated rage. The kind that makes your blood go cold. Just as the SUV caught up to me, my brother launched the rock with everything he had. Crack. The windshield splintered in the top corner. And he didn't stop. He kept running straight for the driver's side like he was ready to rip the door off its hinges. Whoever was inside must have felt it, too. They gunned the engine and peeled out, tires screeching as they disappeared into the distance. My brother chased them for a bit, but they were gone. We never saw that black SUV again. I didn't go running for 4 months after that. When I finally did, it was without headphones, always watching my back. I still ask my brother why he showed up that night. Why he came looking for me just then. All he says is, "I don't know. I just felt like I should check on you." Whatever it was, instinct, fate, something else, I owe him everything. The man smiled, but every time he shook my hand, something inside me screamed run. It was spring, just after I'd graduated college, and I was on a solo bike tour along the coast, from Canada all the way down to Mexico. I was 22, directionless, and craving something that felt like freedom. Most of the time, I actually felt safe. I'd met plenty of people, biked with others for short stretches, and had gotten used to sleeping in empty campgrounds or remote parks without fear. But one evening changed all of that. I was somewhere halfway down the Oregon coast and only about a mile from the campground I'd planned to sleep at. That's when I saw it, a yellow vintage Ferrari. Bright, low, loud. It passed me heading in the opposite direction, just a blur of color on a quiet road. By the time I rolled into the campground, the sun was getting low. I pulled up to the information board to check the map and fees. And then I heard it. The same Ferrari, pulling in behind me. It stopped right next to me. The driver stepped out, a man in his late 50s or maybe early 60s. Charismatic, chatty, completely disarming. He started asking me about my trip, about the ride, saying he was from around here but had never checked out this particular campsite. At first, it felt normal. I'd talked to plenty of strangers during this tour. Most were sweet, curious, and kind. But this guy? Something was different. He kept reaching out to shake my hand like he was about to leave, but each time, he'd grasp my forearm with his other hand and do this weird, stifled laugh. It wasn't friendly. It was rehearsed. Like he'd done it before. His grip was firm. Too firm. And the whole time, I couldn't shake this feeling that something was very, very wrong. I looked around and realized how vulnerable I was. No phone signal. No other campers in sight. Just me, this man, and the open door to his Ferrari. I backed up slightly. Forced a smile. Then I raised my voice and said, loud and clear, "I've got to get going now." And then I bolted from my bike and sped toward the campground entrance like my life depended on it. I didn't even bother finding the designated hike and bike spots. I just threw my tent down right across from the camp host's post and stayed there. I kept trying to tell myself he was just weird. Just a little too friendly. But the way he looked at me. The way he grabbed my arm. The way he lingered. I don't think he was just being friendly. That moment stuck with me through the rest of the trip. Every time I felt safe, I remembered his face, and reminded myself how easily trust can get you hurt. I thought it'd be fun to get high and explore the Vegas tunnels. It was, until something screamed from the dark. It was our annual spring break trip to Las Vegas. Nothing too wild, just gambling, eating, chilling in the hotel with my friends. But by the third day, we were bored. We'd seen most of the shows and done the usual tourist stuff. That night, I was scrolling through YouTube and stumbled across a video, something about the Vegas sewer tunnels and the people who lived down there. Apparently, the underground flood control system was home to a large homeless population. And that's when I got the brilliant idea: let's smoke and go explore it ourselves. Amazingly, I convinced everyone. And after some back and forth, we said screw it and headed out. We found one of the tunnel entrances easily. It was marked with graffiti, and you could tell people had been living there, used needles, trash, and signs of life scattered around. It was quiet, dark, and empty, at least at first. We passed a joint, cracked jokes, tried to scare each other. The deeper we went, the more the tunnel swallowed us. We couldn't see where it ended, and honestly, that was part of the thrill. Then we saw the tent. Used needles and garbage surrounded it. Clearly, it was someone's spot. That was the first moment things started to feel wrong. A little while later, I thought I saw something move in the shadows. I told myself it was nothing. There were people down there, after all. No big deal. And then, the sound. It was like a scream, but not human. A deep, guttural shriek that echoed through the tunnel from up ahead. It pierced straight through us. We froze. No one said a word. Then we all looked at each other, wide-eyed, and started walking back. Fast. Not running, not yet. Just moving with purpose. Then something hit me. We should have passed that tent again on the way out, but we didn't. I didn't say anything at first. We were all tense, all suddenly very sober. We stopped joking. We stomped out what we were smoking. Just walked. But minutes passed, and we were still in the tunnel. No light. No exit. No tent. I finally spoke up. We should have been out of here already. And that's when it happened again. That same noise. Louder. Closer. This time we ran. Fumbling, tripping, crashing into things, anything to get away from whatever was back there. My heart was hammering. Every footstep echoed like it wasn't ours alone. Then, finally, we saw light. The tunnel opening came into view and we bolted out into the night, gasping for air. What the hell was that sound? Why didn't we pass that same tent again? And why did it feel like something had been following us? We never found out. But every one of us agreed on one thing. We were being chased. It lives in my memory now. I never went back. I never will. And if you're ever in Vegas and thinking about heading into those tunnels, don't. At first, I thought he was just some awkward shopper. Then I found his truck parked on my land in the dark. It was a pretty normal day. I'd wrapped up work around 6, shut my laptop, and decided to make a quick grocery run into town. I live in a small highway town in northern Utah, not much more than a couple truck stops, some scattered stores, and a whole lot of nothing once you hit the outskirts. I pulled into the store and started shopping like usual. But not long after, I noticed a man staring at me. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I just happened to look at him the same moment he glanced my way. Weird timing, no big deal. But a few minutes later, I spotted him again, different aisle this time. I was alone in the aisle, crouching to grab something, when I felt him walk up. He stopped maybe 5 or 6 feet away, just standing there. Not browsing. Not picking up anything. Just standing. I kept my eyes forward but shifted my gaze just enough to confirm what I already suspected. He was watching me. "Hi," I said, trying to keep it light but firm. He didn't answer. I grabbed what I needed and walked off. Honestly, I chalked it up to him being some weird loner. Maybe socially awkward. I wasn't about to spiral over a bad interaction at the grocery store. But when I checked out and headed to my car, that's when the unease really set in. I usually park toward the back of the lot. When I looked up before pulling out, I noticed something off. The man was still there, standing between 2 cars. He had no groceries. No bags. Just standing. And he was watching me again. I shook my head, muttering something about creepy truckers running on fumes, and pulled out of the lot. The sun had dipped below the horizon now, and the roads were dark and silent as I drove home, just dirt roads and fields all around. I got home, parked out front, and carried in a couple bags. While unpacking, I got caught up in a phone call from my dad. When it ended, I went back outside to grab the rest of the groceries, and that's when I saw it. A truck. Parked just off the dirt road. No headlights. No parking lights. Just a silhouette barely visible against the night sky. It was on my property. I own nearly 40 acres of open land. That truck hadn't been there when I drove in. I was sure of it. And if someone was just turning around or resting, why no lights? Why pull that far into private land? I didn't panic right away. Maybe it was just some guy who didn't want to pay for a motel. Still, I kept my eyes on the truck while I grabbed the bags. I wasn't going to confront anyone, but I wasn't about to ignore it either. Back inside, I kept the front curtains open so I could keep watch. For the next hour or so, the truck didn't move. Eventually, I started to feel less anxious. Maybe it was just what I'd hoped, a tired driver catching some sleep. I closed the curtains, went upstairs, and went to bed. But in the middle of the night, I woke up needing to use the bathroom. I didn't check the time, but it felt like 2 or 3 a.m. Still half asleep, I shuffled across the bedroom and into the hallway. As soon as I opened the bathroom door, I heard a creak downstairs. That sound didn't belong. I paused. Then slowly shut the bathroom door and opened it again, trying to recreate the sound. Nothing. I stepped to the end of the hallway and looked down the staircase. The house was dark, only faint moonlight slipping in through the kitchen windows. And that's when I saw it. A shadow. Just barely moving. On the wall near the downstairs hallway. I didn't know if it was someone in the house or standing just outside the back door, but either way, my heart went into overdrive. I backed away slowly. No sudden movements. Then I closed my bedroom door, just as gently as I could, and grabbed my phone. I called the police. My voice was quiet, barely above a whisper. At first, everything was still. I started doubting myself. Maybe the shadow had been from a tree or something. But then I heard it again. Creak. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, on the floor below. They moved into the living room. And then sirens. Flashing lights filled the front yard. A patrol car pulled up. I never saw the man again. Never saw the truck again. But I can still remember the shape of it, hidden in the dark. I still think about that shadow, and whether I was seconds away from coming face to face with whoever had been standing in my hallway. I heard the creak, then the footsteps. He was already inside. Right before the police arrived, I heard him moving, quick footsteps, scrambling downstairs. Then the sound of the back door swinging open. The officers caught him running across the field, headed toward the truck I'd spotted hours earlier. And yeah, it was him. The same guy from the grocery store. The one who stared at me, followed me, and then somehow found his way into my home. Turns out he was armed. Claimed he was there to rob me. But nothing was missing. He didn't even have a bag or a way to carry anything out. No, this wasn't about money. He knew I was home. Knew I was alone. Whatever he was really planning, I don't want to know. But I do know this. He had probably been watching me for hours, maybe longer. Maybe from the moment I stepped out of that store. And that's a thought that still keeps me up at night. He said he just wanted to make sure I got in okay, but by midnight he was staring at me through the window. Last summer, I was on the tail end of a long solo road trip. After visiting some family, I planned my route home in sections, about 4 hours of driving each day. I'd booked my last stay at an Airbnb cabin about 2 hours out, figuring it would be a nice break before finishing the final leg. It sat right off the highway, surrounded by flat land and tall scattered trees. A line of pine trees marked the entrance, split by a gravel driveway that led right up to the front steps. Honestly, the whole setup felt eerie. Not because it looked run down, it didn't. The inside had clearly been renovated for Airbnb guests. It was clean, warm, almost cozy. I dropped my bag, grabbed some fast food I'd picked up, and sat at the little table to eat. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. I hadn't heard any car pull up. No footsteps either. The knock came out of nowhere. I opened the door and found a man, mid-40s maybe, bearded, bald. He smiled. "Hey there. Just wanted to stop by, make sure you got in okay." His voice was calm, casual. But something about the way he stood there, the way he smelled, sweaty, like soil and sour clothes, put me on edge. Still, I nodded and said everything was great, thanks. He smiled again, and I shut the door. Weird? Sure. But maybe he lived nearby. Or maybe he just liked checking in on guests. No big deal, right? I finished my food, showered, and got ready for bed. But just as I settled in under the covers, there it was again. Another knock. It made my blood run cold. I hadn't heard a car. I hadn't heard anything. Just the knocking, soft but deliberate. Why was he back? I checked my phone. No text. No call. Nothing. I crept into the main room, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. He was knocking again, slower now, like he was waiting. I didn't want to open the door this time. I didn't even want to be near it. From the other side I called out, "What do you need?" Silence. Then another knock. He said, "Can you open the door?" I told him it was late. That unless it was an emergency, I wanted to be left alone. Then, nothing. No footsteps walking away. No gravel crunching. Just silence so thick it felt alive. I waited. A minute passed. Then another. I inched toward the window in the door, hesitated, then looked through it. He was gone. No way he walked off that fast without me hearing. He had to be nearby. I stood frozen, unsure what to do, until something caught my eye, a glint of movement in the corner of the living room window. I turned my head slowly, and there he was. Staring at me. Face pressed near the glass. No smile this time. Just cold, calculating eyes. His eyes were still staring at me through the window when I realized he wasn't the host. I panicked. I sprinted to the bedroom, slammed the door, and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. As I whispered to the dispatcher, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of a window being jostled open. Not broken. Not smashed. Lifted. And that's when the pieces clicked. He hadn't knocked like a stranger. He hadn't acted like one. He knew his way around the place. Because he'd been there before. But he wasn't the host. Not even close. When police arrived, the man was already gone, vanished into the night. They searched the woods, the roads, nothing. Just empty land and darkness. Later, they contacted the real host. He was out of town. Lived hours away. Said no one was supposed to be on site. He hadn't sent anyone. Hadn't asked anyone to check in. And whoever that man was? We have no clue how he knew I was staying there that night. What he wanted, what he was planning, I'll never know. And maybe that's for the best. But I'll say this. If I had opened that door again, I don't think I'd be here to tell you about it. Somewhere out in the forest, something or someone swung an axe once. Just once. I was 18. It was spring break. My mom had booked a cabin up in northern Minnesota for the three of us, me, her, and my 7-year-old brother. We'd planned to spend the week exploring small towns, trying to get a feel for places we might want to move to. None of us had ever been this far out in the woods before. The place was isolated, a solid 35-minute drive from the nearest store. The cabin was old. Everything creaked. The floors, the stairs, even the door frames. Still, it had a certain charm to it, and the sunset over the trees was the kind of thing you don't forget. We were all exhausted after the 10-hour drive. My mom passed out around 8:30. My brother had been asleep for a while already. But I'd taken a long nap earlier, so I stayed up. Just me, the crackling fireplace, and my phone. Eventually, I stepped outside to the back deck. It was small and a bit rickety, with a weathered fire pit and a few chairs. Beyond that, nothing but trees. Endless forest, stretching in every direction. It was completely silent. And I loved it. After a while, I noticed some logs stacked off to the side and decided to try the fire pit. Surprisingly, it worked great. Flames danced quietly, casting soft light into the darkness. I sat out there for about 30 minutes, just soaking it all in. But then, the sound. A single, sharp crack. Like metal biting into wood. It echoed through the trees like it wasn't supposed to be there. I froze. It sounded exactly like an axe hitting something solid. Not twice. Not in a rhythm. Just once. I scanned the dark tree line, but I couldn't see anything. Pitch black. No movement. Just wind through the leaves and that one awful sound hanging in my head. I waited. 5 minutes passed. My heart still hadn't slowed. The peacefulness was gone, replaced with a tightening in my chest. I smothered the fire and went back inside. The cabin was quiet. Everyone was still asleep. But I couldn't shake the feeling. I sat in the living room with a downloaded movie on my phone, trying to forget what I'd heard. But then, another noise. This one was subtle, inside the cabin. Maybe just the wood settling. Maybe the wind. I paused the movie. Listened. And then it came again, from the far end of the house. Outside. Just beneath the window. I leaned in, trying to hear more. That's when the front door suddenly shook with a loud series of rapid knocks. The whole wall vibrated. I froze. Footsteps rushed from the hallway. My mom, now awake, her voice panicked. What was that? I saw the axe before I saw his face, and that was all I needed to know. I was already on my feet when my mom rushed into the hallway. I told her, "Someone's at the door." That alone was enough to drain the color from her face. Without another word, she turned and bolted back to her room to grab her phone and call 911. There was no reason, none, for anyone to be out here in the middle of the night, knocking like that. No neighbors. No ranger stations. Just miles of woods. I stepped cautiously toward the front door and looked through the peephole. No porch light. No moon. Just shadows. But he was there. A figure. Tall, broad. Standing too close. Just staring at the door. And then I saw it. The outline of an axe. A big, heavy one. Resting in his hand. I felt every nerve in my body light up like fire alarms going off in my blood. I wanted to tell myself there was another explanation. Maybe he was lost. Maybe he needed help. Maybe. But there was nothing normal about a silent man holding an axe, banging on a door in the middle of the woods without saying a single word. He knocked again. Louder this time. 3 quick, jarring thuds. Still silent. My mom was talking fast on the phone in the background. I heard her say the words. "He has a weapon." And that's when he struck. Crack. The head of the axe hit the door so hard that the blade pierced through the wood, just slightly. Splinters curled outward from the point of impact. I didn't wait. We all ran. My mom, my little brother, and I sprinted to the farthest bedroom, slammed the door, locked it, and backed into the corner. My brother clung to my side, completely silent, too terrified to cry. Another hit. Then another. Maybe 4. Maybe 5 total. Then nothing. No footsteps. No voice. No sound at all. Had he broken in? Had he left? We didn't know. Every second felt like a lifetime. We just stayed still, holding our breath, hearts pounding loud enough to drown out the silence. It took about 15 minutes for the police to arrive, which was faster than we expected considering how far out we were. When they got there, the front door was still hanging on, barely, but it was shredded with deep gashes, like claw marks from something inhuman. The man? Gone. No footprints. No broken branches. Just vanished into the woods. The leading theory? He saw my campfire. Saw that faint flicker out in the black and made his way to us. But that doesn't explain why he was out there to begin with. or why he had an axe, or why he never said a word. We packed up and left that same night. And no, in case you're wondering, we didn't move to Minnesota after that. I still think about it though. About how one moment of peace, me, sitting by a fire under the stars, might have been the very thing that brought him to us. Sometimes I wonder, what if I'd stayed outside just a little longer? I booked a last-minute motel room just to get off the road. Turned out someone never checked out. This happened last year, around October. I was driving cross-country for work, and by the fourth night, I was completely burned out. It was just past midnight, and I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. I didn't want to push it. I was somewhere in northern Arizona when I saw a glowing motel sign flicker in the distance. The Sandridge Inn. Old school place. Looked like it hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. But the parking lot was mostly empty, and the vacancy sign was still lit, so I figured it would do. I parked and went to the office. The guy behind the counter was asleep sitting up. Not kidding. I had to cough to wake him. He jolted awake and mumbled something about keys and IDs. I signed the form and he handed me a room key, 209, second floor, far end. Quiet room, he said, like that was a feature. It was weird though. He seemed tense when he gave me the key. Eyes darting. He looked like he wanted to say something more but didn't. Anyway, I didn't care. I was too tired to think. I climbed the stairs, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The room smelled stale, like mothballs and cheap air freshener, but it was clean enough. Twin bed, nightstand, and an old boxy TV bolted to the wall. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the bed. I hadn't even turned off the lights when I heard it. A soft knock. I sat up, instantly alert. Listened. Nothing. Figured it was the room next to me. But then, another knock. Same volume. 2 slow taps. This time from the bathroom door. I froze. I hadn't gone in there yet. The light was off. The door was shut. "Hello?" I said, my voice cracking. Nothing. I got off the bed and walked slowly to the bathroom. My hand hovered over the knob. I told myself it had to be something stupid, like a loose pipe or an old building settling. I opened the door fast and flipped the light on. Empty. No one inside. No broken tiles. No signs of anything. I laughed to myself, half from nerves, half from embarrassment, and shut the door again. Then I noticed something. The toilet seat was up. I never touched it. And worse? The mirror was fogged up, like someone had just taken a shower. I went cold all over. I grabbed my phone, but there was no service. Of course. Middle of nowhere, ancient building. No bars. I pulled my boots back on, grabbed my bag, and opened the door to leave, and that's when I heard it. The bathroom faucet turned on. I turned around, and I swear I saw a shadow move behind the frosted glass of the bathroom door, like someone stepping forward closer to it. I didn't even think. I slammed the door behind me and ran straight to the front office. The guy at the desk was awake this time. He didn't look surprised when I burst in. "Room 209, I said, breathless. "There's someone in there." He just looked at me, expression blank. Then quietly said, "Are you sure you want to know what happened in 209? That stopped me. He eventually told me the last person who stayed in that room, 2 months earlier, checked in alone and was found dead in the bathroom, collapsed against the door. They said it was natural causes. No foul play. But weird things started happening after that. People hearing things. Doors locking on their own. Faucets turning on. They'd been trying not to book it out anymore, but they were low on rooms that night. I didn't ask more. Didn't want to. I slept in my car, with the seat pushed back and the windows cracked. Didn't even try to get my refund. And now? Every time I stay in a motel, I check the mirror. The faucet. The toilet. Just to make sure I'm really the only one in the room.